it comes to your inner journey of healing and personal development. No matter the method you use, the vital point is to practice. If you're ready to transform your life and live with clarity, connection, and wholeness, then you're in the right place. Welcome back to The Vital Point. I'm your host, Jonathan Schecter. As a breathwork facilitator and integration coach, my goal with the show is to inspire you to take action for yourself, whether you're taking the first step on your journey of healing and self-discovery, or you're already a seasoned traveler. Because the truth is, you have the capacity to transform and bring your intentions and dreams into the world. And there's never been more access to so many incredible modalities that can help you on your journey. This podcast will help you learn simple methods you can use to change your life with guided practices and interviews with practitioners who are doing the work. I want you to feel confident and inspired to take the next step on your pathway to integration and wholeness, because the answer is found in the action. That's the vital point. My guest on today's show is my friend Adrian Lozano, who is an integration and microdosing coach, as well as a space holder with Sacred Mushrooms. And we get into some really interesting, juicy stuff around integration, how to choose a good facilitator, and the importance of that, of working with people who have done their own work. There's a saying that we can only support people or meet people as deeply as we've met ourselves. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind right now when psychedelics are coming so far out into the mainstream. You may have seen or heard the recent podcast that Oprah and Michael Pollan did together. And just like anything in this psychedelic arena, there are always some polarized views. There are folks that I know that were celebrating and jumping for joy and reposting clips of them talking, and other people really questioning why Oprah and Michael Pollan are the qualified ones to be sharing about these sacred medicines. And with so many people jumping in to this arena, it's more important than ever to really vet your facilitator, to work with someone that's qualified to hold space and meet you at these depths that these peak experiences can take us to. In addition, we talk about the importance of integration and what that looks like, whether it's working within yourself or being in community. We also get to talk about one of my favorite topics, the importance of having fun, play, specifically in the context of raving and how that intersects with our inner work. Adrian has an amazing vital point, which is that you are the medicine. It's a message that I wholeheartedly agree with. And so I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Before we jump into that, I want to give you a quick heads up about the new course called The Path of Meditation, starting basically right now inside my Blue Magic Alchemy school community. It's a 30-day live guided meditation course. There's going to be 30 days of guided meditation sessions with an optional microdosing protocol built into the themes and practice that we're doing. And this course is really based around my own meditation practice of over 20 years and some of the things that I've learned. So it goes into Buddhist mind training. We'll be doing some bhakti practice, as well as exploring some of the frameworks within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, like Mahamudra, emptiness, Dzogchen. It's not just about learning and listening, but actually sitting down, putting our butt on the cushion, as the old teachers say, and letting the practice work on you. So if that sounds like your kind of vibe, come over to school.com/Blue Magic Alchemy and check that out. The link is in the show notes. All right. So this one's been a long time coming. Adrian Lozano, welcome to the Vital Point podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. I feel like we've circled around this for maybe a couple of years now. So it's cool to finally connect.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it has been, and we both watch each other grow in our respective areas. So it's been cool to see that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I wanted to jump in with something that I saw on your socials, if that's okay. That was kind of sparking my interest, and I thought it would be a good place to jump in. Um, you posted this quote, or just like this thought that said, "Vetting your facilitators is really important when selecting who you trust with your journey. Personally, I'd only want to sit with someone who's gone to hell and back with the medicine they're serving, preferably to the point they thought they've broken their mind." So I wonder if you could like share a little bit more about that, and maybe some of your own experiences with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think nowadays, vetting facilitators is really important. There's a lot of people out there that are wanting to serve medicine, wanting to call themselves facilitators. As you know, this kind of like a wild, wild west. So, like, technically, anyone can step in and be like, "Hey, I want to serve this medicine now." Oftentimes, it's before they've had many experiences with medicine. Maybe they have like a very blissful and enlightening experience, and they're just like they're like, "I need to share this." But as we know, there's dark sides to this work too. There's shadows, and for me personally, like I have had experiences like that where I personally have thought my mind was broken, and I personally have felt, I reached a point of no return, and then being able to come back from that was very jarring. And for me personally, being able to come back from that was really when I learned a lot about how powerful these medicines can be, and how delicate someone is coming out of that experience too, and how important it is to have support, how important it is to have somebody who's been through that. I've had clients that have been through that as well, and because I have been there, I've been able to walk them through it, and it helped them integrate, because it can get really dark, and someone can go to these places, but you can only take someone as far as you go with yourself. So if someone doesn't have that experience or that capacity, to have gone that deep with the medicines, then how can they, be a facilitator that can guide someone through that experience coming out of it? So that's something that came to mind after a journey that I had recently, and I was like, yeah, no. And also for myself, as I sit with new medicines from time to time, medicines I have not worked with. I sat with Bufo last year, and I'm very, when I vet my facilitators, really am careful about who I choose to sit with, who I choose to guide me through the experience. So same thing, like I kind of know that they've gone, asked them a lot of questions, and kind of see where they're at with the medicines, and really only sit with people that I know can support me in that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of people jumping into this work right now, and not all of them have had the depth of experience that maybe we have, or people that you work with. Um, could you talk a little bit more about like maybe what that's like coming out of it for you, what it's been like, or how you've supported your clients?
Yeah, for myself, I've only had like a handful of experiences, thankfully, where I felt like I kind of went to the deep end. And I would say, coming out of it, it's almost like I have to be really gentle with myself. Like my sense of reality is broken, and like well, I would say like the most recent time, last year actually, I had that experience with mushrooms where I thought I was dying, and I thought my mind broke, and I thought like this is it. And really, and it was really frightening too in that experience. And thankfully I had a facilitator who was able to support me and like walk me through that, and like tell me to breathe, and that I'm not dying, and that all of that. But coming out of that, integrating that, to me was like, no, the mushrooms told me like this version of you is going to die, and in order to evolve to the next version. And that was my whole life changed. That was, me and my ex were getting out of the relationship. Like after the ceremony, her and I broke up on a mutual terms, and then I had moved to the mountains, and that like started a whole new life path for me. I was, able to dive deeper into this path of medicine work, and was able to align myself fully, in that. But it took me having to let go and chapters of a lot of things I was holding on to, and that version of Adrian no longer lives. And so it was kind of like and it took me a long time to integrate that experience. I didn't stay with medicine for like 6 to 8 months during that, because it was very, I knew that I needed to process all of it. I needed to grieve. I needed to feel into all of that. So for me, integrating that was like, don't sit with medicine for a while. Like actually sit with myself, sit with my emotions, sit with my feelings, because it was a lot. And I also like kind of went dark for a bit. I didn't really. I kind of like took a step back from things so that I can really like choose to hold space for myself in that moment. And coming out of that was like a rebirth, where my now I'm a year later have a lot more capacity for myself, and the work that I do and creativity's coming back, my flow's coming back. It feels great. I have a lot more I don't know, appreciation of life, I would say. So it could be a very transformative experience, but as we know, integration is the key.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the rebirth, because that was what I was sort of that was what was coming to me as you were sharing, was just like, it sounds like a part of you dying in a way, but that also makes room for new growth and space, right? Like you can't create in a space that's already completely full.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. And I can definitely, yeah, there were certain things that were very, resonant to me. Like I had an experience like that a few years ago, right before I left, my wife of like 12 years.
Wow.
I was up in the mountains, and I basically, as soon as I ate these mushrooms, I was like, oh no, you're going to die up here. And what are you going to do now? But just that moment of like, okay, it went from, okay, something's wrong, this is like way more than I thought it was going to be, to thinking about somebody having to like carry my body down this mountain through these campsites and stuff. And like, gosh, what a jerk I was for subjecting someone to that, to just surrender. Like, okay, well, there's nothing you can do to change it, so I guess I'm just going to lay here and die. And when I came back from whatever that was, the rest of the experience was really beautiful, but it was a couple of hours of pretty much terror and, just sort of surrendering to that experience. And, yeah, I didn't know that that we were going to break up right after that, but we did. So kind of some interesting, parallels there.
Yeah, that's cool.
So what's it been like living in the mountains?
Man, it's now a year later of living there. And so initially when I moved up there, it my soul just told me that I needed to go up there, and I didn't know why. I was like, okay. So I found an opportunity to rent a cheap cabin and like kind of test it out. And then 3 months later I bought a home over
Mm.
there. So I really doubled down over there. And um, you know, at first it was really difficult. And I think that's why I wanted to move up there. It was because part of my trauma has been abandonment wound, fear of being alone, which shows up in my relationships and has showed up in. So I kind of wanted to step into that like in a deeper setting. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I first moved up there, it was really difficult because I was grieving the loss of a breakup. I was grieving the loss of my life that I had in the city, friends as well that I lost through that relationship too. Just like a lot of things changes that were happening really fast. But I tend to sometimes think most men can attest to this. We tend to isolate when we're like going through stuff. Like, no, I don't want. I'm okay. I'm good, and try to bypass, and it really was not serving me. And I just went through like a dark period of like isolation. And I came from Los Angeles to San Diego, both big cities, and then I go to this mountain area that has like 10,000 people or less, and people in the mountains live up there for a reason. They're kind of more to themselves, I would say. So I wasn't used to that, and I also work from home, so kind of at the worst of it was going a few days without seeing anybody, and like really being with myself and with my thoughts and with my at that point with my pain really. So it was pretty intense. That's why like I didn't sit with any medicine because like that was a ceremony for me of like the feeling of intensity. And like I've never cried as much as I did there because I've always in my previous like I've always lived with people, and For me, it's hard to cry as a man, and like you can't let anyone hear you. But for the first time, I lived alone, and I lived in the isolated place, so I just let the waterworks come out, and it felt good. It was really like healing in that sense. I really got to know myself, but yeah, it was kind of like being in a dark echo chamber, if you will, where like all of my thoughts were there. There was no one to talk to. I just had my cat and I were just there, and like, so at first it was pretty hard, and then now like that I was able to do. Actually, what helped me was finally sitting with mushrooms again. I sat with them maybe like 6 months later, and I was able to come back to myself. I was able to reconnect with my heart, reconnect with my purpose, my vision, why I'm here, like why everything had to happen the way it did, and really have that inner knowing. And then like after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to live with someone. I don't want to be alone anymore. So I got a roommate up there. It's been great. I've been coming more to San Diego. I've been reconnecting with people. I've been getting new friends, cultivating new relationships, people that are aligned with who I am. And it's been now. It's like I love it up there. I haven't been there in 2 weeks because I was traveling. So like I can't wait to go up there. Like when I go up there now, it's like a full reset. I get to actually enjoy being connected to nature. Like my backyard's in the forest, and it's beautiful. So like I can now appreciate it. But for a while, I thought, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Like I need to move out. Like why did I buy a house here? Like but now like looking back at it, it's great. I get to also the reason why I bought it was or to move up there also to be able to support my clients up there. And so I do one-on-one journey work as well up there. And kind of it's an extension of myself, of my practice. I've done a lot of healing in that home with different medicines, and also like people that walk through there get to, heal in a place that is more conducive to this rather than being in the city.
Yeah, for sure. I would probably prefer to be in a place like that that's more isolated than some place where someone might knock on your door or just random stuff might happen. I often reflect on how interesting it is that like the one of the worst things that we can do to a person, like, at least the way that we consider it now in modern culture is like put them in, isolation, like when they're in prison, right? But then also you have this history of like these yogis like being in isolation, like living in caves for years and coming out enlightened. So it is kind of an interesting juxtaposition of like, well, is this going to be heaven or hell?
Yeah, I would say that I think a lot of us that maybe work with plants in this capacity, I romanticize moving to the mountains. Like I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. Like I don't need to be around people. I just need nature. And then quickly realize like, no, we need connect. Like we as human beings need connection. We don't need to be alone, and especially me, I'm a social person, so we crave connection and being able to relate with others. So I learned that living up there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's like a balance, right?
hmm
And it is nice to have that time, that quiet time, just you and nature. There's something that I like. That's one of the things I love about living in Tucson is like from where I live, within 15 minutes, there's like one of 5 or 6 different trailheads that I can be
That's awesome.
on, and I can be away from other people and the sounds of civilization and things like that really quickly. And I find that really helps me in my own integration, just
Mm.
having that stillness and that quiet, and just not being around other energies of people at least.
Yeah, no, it is helpful, and I appreciate it now. Like, but again, balance.
Yeah. So what's it like sitting with you when you're the facilitator? Like, what sort of energies do you bring in, or like kind of what's your philosophy for how you hold space and create that
Yeah,
container?
good question. I haven't really been asked that. Now that I think about it. So, for me, I always tell people like I am just here to create a safe space for you to do your work with the medicine. I'm not a shaman. I'm not here to do any healing for you. Like only you can heal yourself, kind of thing. I let people know that, giving them their own agency. But I am here to support you. and I'm here to support you before, during, and after this experience and beyond, so that they know that they have someone there who really cares about them in this journey. And everyone's experience is going to be different, and then how they feel safe with it. But I do like to really, I feel like I'm like a bridge between the ancient traditions and modern day practices, where I have spent a lot of time working with indigenous communities as well, and I try to like learn from that and like how can I keep reverence to these practices? How can I keep reverence to these medicines and how we work with them in right relationship as well? So I do try to keep reverence to the medicine, give thanks to the land, ancestors, the elders who work with these medicines. I do sound healing as well, so I incorporate sound healing into my ceremonies. I am wanting to incorporate more like singing and song of my own, but I do a lot of like recorded music as well. It depends. Like if I have a retreat going on, then I have like other practitioners too, not just myself. Sometimes we'll have a musician. If it's just myself, then it will just be me and like the other person one on one. And typically like, I let people know that I'm here to support, ask for help however you need it, but it's more like I'm going to let them be on their journey and not kind of be kind of like a fly on the wall, but more like a crow on the wall watching everything and make sure that they're safe. Um, and being able to, I don't know, a big influence of mine is, again, like South American kind of tradition. So a lot of my music is medicine music in Spanish. A lot of my clients happen to not speak Spanish, so that's kind of fun. And kind of also what's great about being in the mountains is we have more space to connect with nature. So that's a big thing too. Like usually beforehand, we'll go on a walk in the forest and kind of ground in that way. And then also afterwards, what I've been doing now is taking folks to the lake. There's a lake nearby, and we've been offering the flowers from the ceremony back to the land. So one of my teachers said that in a ceremony, the flowers absorb the energy of the ceremony. Flowers have a high vibration, so they take in all of our prayers, all of our tears and energy that is cultivated within the ceremony. So then when we give it back to the land, we're like thanking the land. Hey, thank you for holding us. Thank you for carrying us. Like, and then kind of being able to have that for myself feel special, but for others that perhaps from the city and never kind of dropped in with nature. So it's really special to be able to do that too. I've been told, for me, it's been like being able to connect, like moving up there, being able to connect more with nature and with the land, and also offering that to others as well.
Yeah, following that inner wisdom
Mm-hmm.
and the energy that's around you. That's really cool. Yeah, that reminds me of like in Tibetan Buddhism, when they make the sand mandalas, these big intricate mandalas, and when they're done and they like basically dismantle it, just kind of destroy it in moments, what took maybe a week or more to create, then they take all the sand and offer it into a body of water that's close by.
It's cool.
So yeah, just bringing that energy back into the land. Yeah, always interesting to just notice similarities in like different cultures and like energy work, even though we might not be calling it energy work, right? Like that's what we're doing. We're working with different energies that are present and surrounding us.
Yeah, it always goes back to the land, right? Probably in some capacity.
Yeah, yeah, and being able to be connected to it, like you're saying, like being in a place where it's not so separate from us. Like again, like my partner asked me the other day, like, hey, like, what do you think about moving to Phoenix? And I'm like, no, because one difference that I've found between Phoenix and Tucson, just besides the size of it, is like Phoenix, when you go there, it feels like they tried to pave over the desert. Like
Yeah.
there's water there. There's like trees and there's things that just don't belong naturally. And Tucson is much more like, this is our home Like
Hmm.
we're like, this is where we live, like let's keep all the cactus and the trees, and there you might have javelinas or coyotes and like running through your neighborhood, and it's very much more like native rather than like let's destroy what was here and replace it with something that's more aesthetic or more convenient for people, and I think that there's something to that, being able to be more in harmony, like
Yeah.
you said, right relationship with the land rather than trying to sort of change it.
Yeah. So yeah, I have been to Phoenix and I've noticed that. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when somebody new comes to you and starts working with you, is there like, do you start them off with say like a microdose or like a smaller dose? Do people typically want to like jump into sort of the deeper realms? Because one of the things that I find interesting about mushrooms in particular, as opposed to maybe some other medicines that one might work with, is like there's these different sort of places that you can go with it depending on like how much you're taking, right? Like no one's taking ayahuasca recreationally,
Yeah. Yeah. No.
right? But like you can work with mushrooms recreationally. You can work with them in a way where you could still go to work and be out in society and functioning. I've also had really great experiences, like, and I want to get into this eventually, like going to raves and,
Mhm.
being like kind of in a more social kind of space. There's more therapeutic kind of doses, right, that people are working with. And then there's like the people like Dave Hodges or, Keisha Lewis or Kalindi Eiley that are like, eating an ounce or more at a time and like
Yeah.
just going into some crazy like other dimensional realms. So like what do you find that there are people that kind of have sort of an average or that seek you out, or is it just more dependent on the person?
It's dependent on the person and people are in different areas. So if someone is brand new to the medicine, like they have no experience, I will recommend them microdose first. And I always give a recommendation, but obviously if they're like, no, I just want to dive in. Okay, I respect that. But so, and the reason why I recommend microdosing is because it's a gentle way to get to connect with the medicine. They get to build relationship and trust. Also, they get to do some inner work already. Like they get to perhaps work on some things that they might want to work on in ceremony, so that when they go in ceremony, they can go deeper. Because like, oh well, I kind of worked on this anxiety that has been in the back of my head, but now I can go into the deeper root of this anxiety that was there.
Mm-hmm.
So they're able to, I feel like, go deeper. And then also, building that trust with the medicine, so they feel more confident when they're in ceremony, and then they can, the mushroom knows them, they know the mushroom. Perhaps they can, like, I've seen it where people that microdose perhaps for 2 months beforehand, then they will go to ceremony. There's like a more easefulness to it. There's like a more gentleness to it. It's like perhaps their nervous system is a little bit more relaxed, and they feel, safer in the experience, and that can be a really big way of like change between like someone who doesn't know, like perhaps are like closed up and then more opened. And as far as like ceremony work, the way that I like to like, and I'm kind of moderate in how I serve mushrooms. I let people decide of like how much do they want to take. Obviously, though, within range. Like if I, especially if we have not worked together before, 2 to 3 grams around that, and then I usually do a booster dose as well. But I don't really serve heavy doses like above 5 grams. It's a lot,
It
and
is.
I feel like people don't need. I personally don't sit with that much medicine. I have the most I've done was 6 grams, but that was when I broke my mind and moved to the mountains. So,
Mm.
and it has a time and purpose. But typically, and also everyone's different based on their, on their, if they're on any medication that's going to inhibit the mushrooms. I'll work with them, and perhaps they might need a little bit more, but the average person doesn't need like 2 to 3, three a little bit more, and I also work with heavier strains too on the potency side. So 3 grams is enough usually.
Yeah, that is one thing about mushrooms these days is like the potency can be getting quite intense.
Yeah.
I had an experience fairly recently and it was new medicine to me. And so I was like, I'm just going to start with a gram of this. And I was really happy that I did because 1 gram to me felt like 5 or 6 grams of like something like a golden teacher or
Mm.
something that I was a little bit more used to working with.
Yeah.
And yeah, it could have been one of those situations pretty quick.
Yeah. Right.
It's
So
not,
you start low and go slow, even with doses.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like what you're describing in a way is almost like dieting with plants, right? Like in the more South American tradition, right? How people do dietas with these master plants, or even something like I did a diet a couple of years ago with passion flower
Mm.
that was really amazing. But where you're really building that relationship up with that medicine, with that plant, and being able to be in communication and in stillness with it, rather than just having this like what we would call in the West like a trip, like one sort of isolated experience.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that because I have thought of it in that way. I wouldn't call it that because it's like appropriation, I think, but it is essentially that of like yes, we're because I have done diets before too with a few plants, and that's the one thing I learned is like building a relationship with the medicine. That's one thing that I do tell my clients like we're building. I don't know, it's not like oh yeah, we're doing a diet, but it's like you are cultivating a relationship. They're getting to know you, you're getting to know them, you're working with them. I tell people like we're working with these plants. We're not taking them. They're not like doing it for us. We're working together. It's a relationship.
Yeah, and that's such a different idea than like what we've been raised with, at least in America, right? Like the things that you see on TV, like for medications, or like when you go to the doctor, it's like I have this problem here, take this pill, or like even more subtle things like like I'm hanging out and life's kind of boring, and you like crack a beer and all of a sudden like the party breaks out, and like right, like it's not that, but that's kind of what we've been conditioned to think of medicine as, like, here I have this problem and this pill is gonna change it, right? But when we're working with these plants, or with mushrooms, it's a relationship. It's something that is happening together, and the medicine isn't. Would you agree that the medicine isn't doing the work, for you?
Definitely. That's why I tell people, like from the get-go, this is different than Western medicine, where, and perhaps especially if they've been on medication, like this is not like a symptom relief kind of medicine where even when we micro, especially like it can amplify things. It can make things a little bit more louder. Anxiety, someone is grieving, it could make them more emotional. If someone is exhausted, it could be more tired. But the mushrooms are going to amplify things so that it can make it a bit louder. It's not going to do it for you. Like it's not going to make you sleep better or process and feel things. It can nudge you and show you the right direction, but it's up to us to be able to walk into that. So I did let people know, like, when we work in this way, it could be a little bit slower process, but mushrooms, they're mycelium and it goes beneath the surface. It can help us get to the root causes of things so that we can heal at the root level so the tree can be a little bit more stable.
Yeah. When I spoke to Tristan Victor on the podcast, he talked about microdosing being like integration in real time. Yeah. Rather than, you have this big experience and then you're like, okay, now I have to spend some time unpacking this and figuring out what it means and how I'm going to, work that into my life. But the microdosing experience is more like this is happening as it unfolds. Yeah. Do you find that there are certain practices that have helped you with your own integration, or like how do you kind of work with your clients with that?
Yeah. For me, now the biggest practice has been connecting with nature. And I always tell people that, but I never knew really what the essence of that was until I moved to the mountains. So like I'll do walking meditations where I just kind of with no technology, and also there's no service up there. So which is good. I get to just be present, get to connect with the trees, really slow down has been like my process. I also, for me, it not so much like sitting and meditating, but being mindful of, throughout the day, check in with my body. How am I feeling? Have I taken a couple deep breaths? How can I connect to the present moment, to the here and now? Also, yoga is one of my favorite practices for integration, be able to move my body. What else? Dancing, my favorite forms of integration, going to festivals and like enjoying myself, living it up. Those are all a couple of things that I kind of like to do to like help me being able to be in flow.
Nice. Yeah. So let's talk about like raving a little bit, because that's something we have talked about on the podcast before, is like in the absence of what exists in many indigenous and other cultures throughout history, as far as space to be in expanded states of consciousness and be in community and, experience that, whether it's, sitting in a sweat lodge, or, the Sufis dancing, the Dionysian, kind of, hedonistic festivals, or, working with plant medicines. We in modern Western culture have sort of forsaken that for a big part. And so it's almost like the rave has filled in that gap a little ways, giving this space for healing, for growth, for rites of passage, for experiencing these, expanded states, whether we're working with, different substances or not. What is raving been for you? And is that, what I just shared, something that you can relate to?
Yeah, and I just spoke with someone about this recently. Dr. Mimi, she's a therapist who talked about how, and it's made me feel safe to even talk about this in this way, how important the rave culture is to the psychedelic community. Because myself included, my first psychedelic experience was in the rave culture, and the rave culture and psychedelics, it goes hand in hand. My first mushroom trip, my first kind of drug that I did was MDMA at a rave, and it was amazing. It opened me up. It made me feel safe in my body for the first time. It made me, it just really allowed me to feel something that I haven't felt before, and also be able to move my body with that. A couple years later, I did mushrooms for the first time at a rave. It was a Halloween festival, so not the best place to do it. I was also at the time mixing it with alcohol. So I ended up having a not a great experience, bad trip. And I remember I had to go to the medical tent. I thought like I was freaking out. And I was like, I'm never doing drugs again. Well, that changed. But so my first experience with mushrooms was at a rave as well. I still continued to go to festivals. And I remember at one point, feeling almost like shame because I had friends that, when we were younger, in my early 20s, they no longer are part of that scene, and they're like, "Wow, you're still going to those?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am still going to them." And I don't know, it just made me feel like that bridge of being able to know that these spaces, a lot of these spaces, people are working with these medicines and in a different way, more recreational, and that's how I got into it. And it was like it opened a door for me. And now, like, I just got back from EDC Mexico last week, so being able to experience this in a sense where like it's a more recreational thing, but it was very healing for me. And I was able to move my body in different ways and be able to connect with myself. So I love this culture, and it's not like it's not a scene, mom. Like I am like a rave to the grave kind of guy. I love it. Like it's like where I feel safe, where I feel free, where I can really express myself. And we both like house music, so it's just like, man, that's like my favorite form of therapy, especially like with the work that we do is it can be so intense at times. And it for me it helps me just like let loose. I'm like, okay, cool, I can enjoy, I can be free, I can just live in the present moment. And I don't know, just yeah, it's very special.
Yeah, I found coming back to it after taking, a break, to be more how would I put it? Like, if I wanted to put it in air quotes, you know, like more serious medicine work, I found that I was able to bring in a lot of the things that I feel like I've integrated into that rave experience. Like, I found myself in the middle of a dance floor, like doing bilateral stimulation on myself, or dropping into more like somatic awareness rather than just kind of mindlessly, enjoying myself, which there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, that would be kind of my experience before. It's just like, I'm here, I'm having a good time. I may be using some sort of substance to enhance that and to be present with the music and the party. But now it's like, okay, I can also slide into some of the things that I've worked on, and be more present in my body, like really allow myself as I'm dancing to be aware of that and to notice like what's happening in a way that is really different. And it almost feels like kind of mixing the two worlds up in a way. Like, it's not quite recreational, it's not quite therapeutic, but it's something that's like in the middle where both of those experiences are going together in a really neat way.
Yeah, I think intention is everything, right? Like, we can intentionally go to festivals. And for me personally, like, I actually, sometimes, like this past, weekend, at EDC, I was integrating, and I wouldn't normally do this, but I had it planned this way, but I did ayahuasca the week before. And, I was integrating that experience in real time as I was moving through my body, and I was kind of like doing some inner work and like figuring things out in my mind, not the whole time, but there was moments where I was like, oh, connect things and put the thoughts together, and like, be like, oh, okay, cool. And like, because it feels different when we feel it in our body. Our conscious mind is here, but then when we move things in our body and in an altered state, it can really help us, for me personally, connect the dots of things that I wasn't able to previously.
Yeah, exactly. Like it, and without the shame, like you're saying, of, maybe what some of your friends were trying to lay on you of like, oh, you're still doing that. It's like, no, this is what I love to do. Then there's nothing wrong with it, and that's another thing about, the rave culture is like, no one's judging you when you're in it. Mm-hmm. The only people that are judging you are outside of it that don't really understand it. But yeah, you go to these spaces and you're completely free to be yourself. And people are going to leave you alone if you want to be left alone. Like, it's not performative, or it doesn't have to be performative. People are allowed and encouraged to just fully be authentic, and that, and feel safe that like, if I come and I show up and I am my authentic self, then I'm going to be accepted, and that people are going to respect me and love me and, give me space and leave me alone if that's what I want as well.
Yeah, and one thing I appreciate about you, and it kind of helps me as well, is like, because you've shared that you go to festivals and or go to raves and whatnot, and it's like, cool, like we can be practitioners, facilitators of like mindfulness, medicine, healing, of all of this, and we can still have fun, and it's okay to like show both facets of ourselves, like. So I also like share that too. Like, yeah, I go to festivals and like, yeah, I do this. If I'm not, and I also like people know that, you sit with me in ceremony and I'm completely different, and I'm, very like a lot more stoic in some sense,
Right.
as opposed to like this guy is over here going to festivals. Like, so, but I'm like, no, that is me. Like, all of it's me. Like, I'm a human being, and I can also have fun too.
Yeah, totally. Like, I'm not pulling out the glow sticks in the middle of the ceremony.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, no, it was funny. I remember, because I remember texting you when I was in LA at John Digweed, right? And there was somebody else that I ran into that night that like follows me on social media, and we had been talking about, doing some integration work and some breath work together. And like me, like to me, it's very integrated. So I'm like sitting there and I'm like, hey, so how's your integration going? Like, what are you doing? And he was like, dude, don't talk to me about that right now. you know? And then I posted something else like randomly, like a couple months later about kind of mixing it up. And he's like, oh yeah, so are you doing mindfulness on the dance floor? And I'm like, yes, I am. Like, it's not separate to me, you know, like this is who I am. This is where I'm at in my life right now. And to me, it goes, you know, like there's, I don't know how to dance and be disconnected from my body.
Yeah.
You know, like I've, yeah, maybe years ago, the only time that you would find me on a dance floor is if I was like, had too many drinks and like I had lost that inhibition of like, oh my God, what if somebody's looking at me or I'm doing something silly or, you know, like that. But like, that's not who I am. And to me, movement is so integrative. Like, it's that place where I can notice, oh my God, I'm starting to feel self-conscious, and then like love myself anyway and be like, this is me. Like, no one's looking at you. Like, they're doing their own thing. Like, just live your life, you know?
Yeah, and I will add that like everything in this community too, there are also dark sides to it as well. And myself as well, like when I was younger, I would use it as an escape and to be outside of my body, and that's like where I was with my trauma back in the day, like where I would use it as like alcohol and you know, substances as well to not be in my body. But you know, being able to, and I did take a step back from raves and all of that for a while to do some deep healing, and then now coming back to it in a conscious way. I'm also older, like I can't do those things I used to do back in the day, like, you know,
Sure.
it's just, but being able to now, like we take electrolytes, like, you know,
Oh yeah.
magnesium, sleep, and like I count my steps. I'm like, okay, cool, I need to do some yoga tomorrow for this. And like, so
Yep.
it's a lot different, but it's cool. Like now, like, okay, cool, like I can enjoy it in a different way. Like I have, like I do get the VIP because I need the extra bathrooms, and I need the you know, chairs to sit because I'm older.
Right. Yeah, some of my friends make fun of me a little bit because like they'll, you know, I'll be bringing in a bag of supplements with me, like, you know, it's like, no, this is totally legal, but I need it because I'm old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, I've also found a lot of value for myself. I know those like the big festivals can be really fun, and where I've really found a lot of value is like these really intentional kind of spaces that I'm choosing to go to, especially when there's like one DJ playing all night.
Yeah, you go to those.
I love it. Like I just want one person that I really, really trust, almost like a ceremony, you know, like kind of guiding the experience from beginning to end and taking you on a journey, and like, rather than 6 different people playing for like an hour or an hour and a half each, you know? And it's not that I don't like those other environments. It's just, this is what I prefer right now, and what I find like conducive to my own inner experience and my own intention going.
Yeah, you know what? I've seen you and Cam go, and I'm also friends with Cam.
Right.
The guy. It'd be cool to go with you guys to one of these things one day.
Yeah. No, that was such an interesting experience going with Cam for the first time, because outside of like a couple of podcasts that we had done together, like we had never hung out really, you know, in person. We maybe spent like 5-10 minutes together at Psychedelic Science, right? And then we had a couple of conversations online. But after I asked him to go, I was like, oh, actually, this could be really, really bad. Like you're going to go take drugs with somebody and hang out with them all night that you like never really like met and or spent a lot of time with in person. And it definitely like brought us together like a lot more. Cam's a great person just in general, but like also to journey with and to like be in those spaces. He's the exact type of person that I like to hang out with, because they like give you the space to be in your own energy when you need it. And they're also like there for you if like you want to be chatty, or like, you know, sometimes you need to like you're saying, like that interpersonal connection with someone where, you know, you can share with them or, you know, just feel supported. And then, yeah, in the aftermath, he was like, this is so different than anything I've ever experienced, because every other rave I've been to, it's like every DJ is just coming out and trying to just like go as hard, as crazy during their time slot as they possibly can, instead of like these two people that were playing together for 6 hours, really building it up and taking you on a journey and giving space for those moments where like, cause like, right, like a journey is like that too. Like there's times where you're like going up and you're in these like big energetic peaks, and then, kind of coming back down and like breathing a little bit. Like there's like these little bit of room before things start to build back up again.
I like that. I like that. I've never thought of it. It sounds like a lot, like 6 hour set when you think about it, because but I go to like a 12-hour festival, right?
Right, right, right.
It's like okay. So thank you for putting it in that way.
Yeah, no, and John Digweed, I think to me in the last couple of years has been like the biggest person that I've wanted to entrust with that journey. Like last year I feel really grateful. I got to see him 3 times, and one was a 5-hour set and two were 6-hour sets. Yeah. And all of them were just really incredible, journeys. And the way that he plays music, it's like, if you take your eye off of it, if you like start to go inside, I would find myself in these moments where I would like kind of come back into the room and be like, how the hell did we get here? Like how do we go into some alien vortex? Like, I don't know how we got here, but this is amazing. The rave is, it's an amazing place. And like you're saying, there's also, I think like you're saying, it comes down to intention as well. Mm-hmm. Like there is a lot of unintegrated energy there, right? And people that are trying to escape, or even just not integrating what happened before and just going back for more and more experiences. Mm-hmm. So how do you think that we sort of avoid that, or like work through that, so that, because this is what inspired me initially to get more interested in integration, is observing other people that I was sitting in ceremony with and listening to their stories of like, well, I'm back here again for like the same challenge or the same problem, and nothing's changed. So I'm just going to come back and do another journey.
For me personally, like what happened was that I was that person going to ceremonies and expecting things to change, and I didn't know about integration. This was like 10 years ago, and I was sitting with ayahuasca, so I didn't know about integration, community, all this stuff. I was sitting with people that came from the Amazon, then would leave. So I thought me healing was going to ceremony, and I thought that like, oh, I'm fixing myself by doing these experiences, and then almost like spiritually bypassing the actual work and integration. And then also where I was, my depression was getting worse, and I was getting deeper into my hole of where I was at the time, and because like I just kind of like would over my head. And then it was actually one experience with ayahuasca. Again, it was very like that mind-breaking experience where I thought I was going to die. And the medicine told me like, you've been here before. I've told you what to do. I don't want to see you in ceremony again for a while. I want you to do the work. And I want you to integrate. And I want you to actually look within. And for me, that meant going to therapy, meditating, yoga, journaling, and kind of did that for about a year. And then the wheels started spinning. I was like, oh, okay, this is what it means to integrate. This is what it means to do the work. And that's when like things started shifting energetically within, outside of me. People felt it. They're like, wow, you feel different. You look different. You look like my energy started being more open, more like kind of like people were more attractive to who I was, as opposed to being this closed off, depressed person. So it was really cool to see that shift and that change. And, I'll admit there's times when I fall off of that and have strayed away from my practices, but then coming back to them, so I was like, integration is the way of life. Like, being able to not just sit in ceremony. And I don't sit with medicine that often personally, a couple times a year. Obviously, as a practitioner, I do need to be in right relationship with the medicine that I'm serving, but I don't feel like I need to do as many ceremonies so frequently now, not nowadays.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I didn't know, and I was that guy. I was going to ceremonies, expecting it to do the work, and that's why I became an integration coach, because I knew how important it is to integrate, and like I wish I would have had that kind of support when I was
Mm.
going into this.
Hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that 100%. Yeah, I think that's a very common thing for people in that are doing this work, is like, what are the things that I wish I knew when I was sitting where my client is sitting? What's the path that I wish that I was more clear,
Hmm.
so that I don't have to go down all these different dead ends, or like try this and then get frustrated, or just sit with this and not have anything happen. How can I make that experience easier and smoother for somebody else? Because that's what I wish I had.
That's also why I tell people, like, perhaps try microdosing first, because I dove into the deep end. Well, I did side with grandmother first, and also some more heroic doses, and that was a lot for me. So like, I wish I would have started with like microdosing, breath work, journaling, all these things that, just to build a foundation, so that walking into ceremony, I have a lot more capacity to be with all this information downloads, be able to actually process it, sit with it, change, like really do, like, slowing down. It's so much information at one time,
Yeah.
that having these tools makes it a lot more of a potential for transformation, as opposed to like just an experience.
Yeah. No, I agree with that as well. Like I'm constantly saying that, is like, I feel like I get more and deeper with the medicine now on a lower dose,
Mhm.
because I have more clarity and more awareness, and the skills that I've, developed from sitting and integrating, than I did before, just like taking 5 grams of mushrooms or even more, or, these, okay, I'm going to go back up for the third cup of, ayahuasca and ceremony. And like the facilitator's like, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, yeah, like let's go as deep as we can, right? But the difference in being present with those experiences, rather than just like trying to sort of get away from myself,
Yeah,
as much as I can.
definitely. It's been, but we all learn in our own way. I'm
Yeah.
sure, like, if someone would have told us like in the beginning, like, hey, yeah, no, but then you learn, and like, okay, maybe, yeah, same with, I don't need to sit with as much medicine nowadays, because I can connect with it a little bit like more consciously in that kind of but hey, you know what? I had to learn, right?
Yeah. I find the same thing with breath work. It's like in the beginning, it was just trying to blast off out of my body as much as I can. And then now, even when I'm in these longer holotropic sessions, I just did a 10-day retreat where I did 8 different 3-hour sessions. And a lot of those were so much more gentle as far as how I was breathing and the way that I was approaching it than I would have a couple of years ago. But I felt like I went deeper than I ever have before.
Nice.
And it's more about like that permission to myself to like really open to what's happening, as well as just my experience with like being able to recognize and be with myself,
Mhm.
rather than just like trying to override and, hyperventilate my way into like some other, realm.
Yeah, no, it's like, slow and steady is a kind of a better way to go. Like, just like microdosing, you don't have to go big, but some of us
Yeah.
learn the hard way.
Well, and I do definitely agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't think I would have listened to somebody telling me that when I was in that space. And so I get it, like why people are like, no, I want to drink that third cup. I want to eat 10 grams of mushrooms or whatever it is.
Hmm.
But, it's like, okay, cool. That's your journey,
Yeah, exactly.
and I'll be here like when, when you're ready to like do something else, or like have a more integrative approach to it. And just like you, I prefer to have that person that is open to like, okay, well, what would it be like to start, with a microdose, whether it's with mushrooms or breath work or whatever it is that they're working on, rather than like, I've got to do as much as I can.
Yeah.
'Cause you can always take more. You just can't take less,
I know.
in the
I love
moment.
it. I see that all the time at Tokyo.
Right. So what else do you got going on? Like, what's coming up for you? What are you excited about right now?
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of work with Mycology Psychology, which is a microdosing integration company. We just today launched a group microdose program, so I'm excited for that. Microdosing is a very individual process, but community is medicine. So being able to have a community of people that are doing a like intentional path, that's helpful. I'm also with them doing a microdosing training practitioner program. So we're launching that again. I did it last year, so we're going to relaunch it again in the spring. That was really a lot of fun, being able to support practitioners of wanting to go deeper into microdosing, and then having retreats as well. I have a couple coming up in the summer, so I'm excited about that. Like that is like my favorite work, being in the retreat space, because I personally have done a lot of my healing in retreats of different medicines, also non-medicine ones as well, yoga ones, ayahuasca, psilocybin. So for being able to now create these experiences for people, really transformative. Probably like my favorite part of the work that I do is these retreats.
Yeah. We'll put a link to your website and
Cool.
anything else that you want on the show page.
Awesome.
And Lozano Flows on Instagram, right?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Well, as a way to bring this episode to a close, often I like to ask guests like, what is their vital point? The name of the show kind of comes from a Buddhist meditation teaching about the statement that strikes the vital point. So is there like one thing that's really alive to you today, or in your work in general, that would be your vital point?
Yeah, a quote from Maria Sabina, which is a curandera from southern Mexico, Oaxaca area, the reminder that you are the medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything that we're doing becomes our work, right? Yeah. I love it. Well, Adrian, I'm glad we were able to finally make this happen. Thanks for your patience with me getting around to it.
Of course, it's all in divine timing, right? Thank you for having me on, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great conversation. So thanks to you and the audience for listening. I hope that you found this as valuable and entertaining as I did. And definitely connect with Adrian if you need some support around microdosing or your psychedelic integration.
Thank you.
That's a great conversation with Adrian. You can find him at Lozano Flows on Instagram, or www.lozanoflows.com. Remember to come over to school.com/Blue Magic Alchemy and check out all the guided practices that we have there to support your spiritual growth and integration. And come join the Path of Meditation course that's going on right now, if you're listening to this within the first couple of weeks of its release. If not, there's a recorded version of the course that's there in the school community as well. So that's www.school.com/Blue Magic Alchemy. Make sure that you signed up for my newsletter at bluemagicalchemy.com, and that way you are in the loop. You're not going to miss any new episodes, and you'll also be updated with lots more like breathwork event updates, new courses, and all the things happening in the community with the other alchemists. So remember that it's not about the method that you choose or the pace at which you travel. The vital point is to consistently show up for yourself and practice. As the saying goes, it's not the destination, but the journey that truly matters. And I am honored to walk alongside you on this path. So please don't hesitate to reach out, stay connected, share your journey, your successes, and the challenges alike. I am just an email, DM, or review away. Thanks again for tuning in. Until our next episode, keep exploring, keep growing, and above all, keep practicing, because that's the vital point.